I have to let them know that their number's wrong. We're not doing 780.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you pick an odd number to end it on, because the odd numbers, for some reason, psychologically tell your person there's a specific reason I've ended on an odd number instead of just saying 700. So we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we kind of finally ended on, my last offer to them was 745 with all the furniture included.
Mm-hmm.
And they accepted.
Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. Welcome to another Provider Spotlight episode on the Plan B CRNA podcast. Our guest today is a friend of the show, and he happened to, help me flip the script last spring. So I just had to have him back on because he's been into some interesting new things. Matthew Newton is already a successful CRNA and investor, but now he's ventured into the world of short-term rentals. He was kind enough to join me today to just share his experiences with his first time through this process. So welcome to the show today, Matthew.
It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, when we've talked in the past, you've typically focused on long-term investments. So why short-term? Why now?
Honestly, I think we talked about it in the past too, because it's all about diversity. You never want to keep all your eggs in one basket. I love my long-term rentals. I think we just closed on ours 2 months ago, and already have a new tenant in it, which is awesome. And that's going really well. I plan on hopefully picking up another one but this time next year as well. But realistically, having the diversity of investments allows for safety, especially in a very, evolving, always changing market, with our inflation and everything that's kind of going on. And two, it allows different tax breaks, which is very nice. Also, different ways to kind of move your money around and do things. And then one of the big things with the Airbnb is, we're running it like a business, but at the same time, it's not that far away from our house. So if we wanted a quick getaway for me and the family, it also kind of serves a dual purpose like that. But really, realistically, the biggest thing is we just wanted to not have all of our eggs in the same basket. If something were to go wrong with the stock market, maybe this would help pick up the slack. If something were to go wrong with the long-term rentals, maybe this would help pick up the slack. If I do a terrible job of managing this and it totally crashes and burns, maybe everything else will help pick up the slack. It's good to have, that mailbox money kind of coming in from all these different avenues.
No, I completely agree with that. And you mentioned something there that I do want to dive a little deeper into, and that's the tax implications. How are some of the tax advantages you have here different from perhaps some of your longer term investments?
I've always been a big fan of living through your LLCs, if that makes any sense. Of course, you never do anything shady, but it's always can kind of help you out whenever you're fixing things up around the house and all these different things. And this being my first year with long-term rentals, I'm sure there's a lot I don't know. The big thing with me is I have a really good CPA. I kind of talk about all my plans going forward, and they kind of tell me, is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? And then we kind of move forward from there. But yeah, like I say, it's nice to have just kind of a different, pool to pull from as far as tax benefits.
Cool, man. Well, let's get into the details here. This was your first go round. What did it look like when you just got started and you're like, hey, I want to invest in a short-term rental? Like, how do you even begin to find a property that would work for that?
So the first thing I do, I of course always try to avoid the analysis paralysis. So what
Mhm.
I do is I'll read 2 or 3 books. I've always listened to podcasts like yours or the Bigger Pockets podcast. I'm always making notes and a list of books to read. So I picked 3 or 4 books, and I read them over I probably read 2 of them. I probably read about 2 to 3 books a month anyway, but I read them over a couple months, took notes, learned the different markets, mountain house, beach house, river house, ski lodge, all these different, VRBOs. Do you want to do a high end VRBO to where you're like, we're talking like 12 stars, or do you want to do just a nice little place for someone to come stay the night in the middle of the city? Do you want to pick what I always call like a launch pad, and pick up something beside the Atlanta airport that pilots can stay at? Like, how do you want to do it? So for me, I kind of looked at 2 things. Where do the numbers work the best? And since I'm brand new at this, I assume I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, and thus far I have, which is great. A lot of mistakes. A lot
Yeah,
of
we'll talk
lessons,
about
but
all that too. Don't worry.
So I kind of look at, I want something I can manage that's close to the house. So there's really, I'm in the middle of Georgia, so there's, as much as I love a beach house, for one, I couldn't make the numbers work right because I want to see a minimum of at least a 10% return every time I tried to make a beach house work. Every time I tried to force a beach house to work, I was still underwater. The other big thing I wanted to make sure if I had to pull out because it was just too overwhelming, I could actually hire a property manager, and I wouldn't be underwater. And with the beach house, it was just every which way I looked at it, I was going to lose. On top of that, the beach houses would have been a little further away, so me and the family wouldn't have been able to use it. So this way, this is close by. It's an hour and a half, so just far enough, but not too far for me to kind of handle anything. With the mountain house, I wanted to pick an area that looked good. So, the Blue Ridge Parkway, I think, has about 13 million people visit the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the Blue Ridge Parkway is very large, but still, it's got a huge visitor base. Lots and lots of tourists always want to go up there. And honestly, the area is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the views of the mountains are just amazing. When my wife and my mom, when we first went up there and kind of started looking, they were kind of on the fence about it because they were both beach house. They're very passionate about beach houses,
Yeah.
And then,
yeah.
but once we kind of checked out a few of these houses, when you just look out and you see the mountains, just like misty mountains in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were sold like that.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
so it worked out well. So I started off reading the books. I listened to my podcasts. I talked to a couple of friends that have mountain houses to get their numbers because I've never done this before, so I didn't really have an idea of where to start. Like what with every mountain house isn't created the same. So I talked to some buddies that had something similar to what I was looking at, so I could get their real numbers. I looked up on AirDNA to kind of get their rough numbers after listening to your guest you had a few weeks ago. AirDNA makes me a little nervous now, but it was a good starting point.
Yeah, I mean, it's got good info. It's just it also has some not so great info too. So,
but I found it very useful because they had a seasonality chart, which I thought was probably one of the biggest things.
Cool.
So on top of just giving you the prices of all the places and all your competition in the area, what I thought was really helpful, because I figured that the seasonality chart can't be too off. Maybe the numbers are off, and I feel like they're a little. I feel like the numbers are very low for AirDNA for Blue Ridge and Morganton area. But the seasonality chart shows you all the hottest days, which it's very simple, but I feel like that's a really good way to kind of set your pricing. And from the previous owners, I noticed their pricing was based a lot on the seasonality chart. So I felt pretty confident with that. But I finally found some great properties. I made like kind of a hit list of like 10 properties. I ran the numbers, and as long as the numbers worked, I was like, okay, now it's time to kind of start going out there and seeing these and seeing what everything looks at.
Yeah. So and I wanted to ask you more about that dynamic pricing, because you mentioned the seasonality of things. So obviously you're charging more during certain periods of the year. Are you the one that's actually setting those prices, or is that something that's kind of automatically done through like Airbnb or VRBO? Like if you set a certain price at a certain time, they automatically will adjust it along the year. I'm not sure how that works.
So you can kind of pick your poison. So Airbnb and VRBO will do it for you if you want. You can. There's literally a button you can click that says Smart Pricing, and it'll put their prices on there. their prices are really low, which is it's okay. You know, the the goal of these sites is to get your place rented, and at these prices, it will 100% be rented at all times.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so I kind of found out, like, looking at them, they're probably about 30 to 40% lower than what I would recommend. And now, and
Holy
I would recommend,
smokes.
having never done this before. So like,
Yeah.
maybe I'm completely wrong and they're completely right, and that's fine. And I'll, when I have 3 or 4 rough months in a row, maybe I'll be reevaluating that.
Hmm.
But based on all the other properties that were similar to mine, what my friends kind of told me they do with theirs, and what the previous owners of this property did, it looks like, so with AirDNA, one of the nice things is you can set what percentile do you want your price. So when you look at Airbnb and VRBO's numbers, it's closer to like the 30th to 40th percentile, we'll say. So,
Okay.
X percent is lower than yours, X percent is higher than yours.
Yep.
I'd say 30 to 40-ish percent. So mine's set at 60%, because that's about where all the competition runs their numbers at. That's what they were kind of doing before, and it looked like it was working well. Plus, the place we got, it's really fancy.
Yeah.
It's nice, and that, like, so it's somewhere that I would want to stay. So I kind of looked at it. So I set the prices. Then I go, okay, would I be willing personally to pay these prices for this place? Because by no means are you're wanting the price gouge. Like, my biggest thing is I want my guests to come, enjoy it, and then come back next year. And you're not going to do that by price gouging them and making it awful. But at the same time, you're still running a business.
Yeah.
So you still need to make your margins and your profit. Worst case scenario, it needs to at least pay for itself.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And that's something too. I mean, I feel like that's a very valuable piece of information that you just shared about the Airbnb and VRBO, like where they set your pricing at, because people may do that, and it's in the name. It's smart pricing. This has obviously got to be the smartest thing that you can do, right? And but perhaps it isn't for your particular property. So that's where, knowing your market, knowing your competitors. And you mentioned that a couple of times. How were you able to find out information about competitors? Did you just go and do some research on Airbnb for surrounding areas, or did you look at AirDNA for that as well?
All the above, actually. So I personally just went on them and typed in 3-bedroom, 3-bath, sleeps this many, has a hot tub, has a good mountain view, and pulled everybody up to kind of look and see what they were doing, what their prices were. AirDNA also will make a list of your competitors and what their numbers look like, how much revenue they generated last year. A lot of really useful information when you're a numbers guy like me. Really, really useful. And then I just kind of looked around and said, okay, this is what's kind of going on. This is that. Airbnb and VRBO also kind of lets you see, what everyone's doing in the area. It's really a nice open kind of forum to to gather information. There's a lot of it out there. You just got to kind of look for it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So, tell us about getting started. I mean, so you go and you find this property that you like, and just take us from there. What was the process like getting that property? Because obviously it was a short-term rental before you bought it. So you bought it, and I'm assuming that they didn't just shut down business. That they had clients that were still scheduled out. So how did that whole process come together?
So it's actually a really fun process. My family is a very it's a fun Italian Irish family. So like anytime we do anything, it's always my wife and my mom that comes. Like I swear they're like my lucky rabbits. But I think my mom's been at more of my home closings for my business than I have. there's been a handful of them where they changed my closing date at the last minute, and I'm like, Mom, you're gonna have to go sign for me on all this stuff. I need to do my power of attorney real quick.
Oh my gosh.
So my method is very on point. So what I do is I lie and I tell them about $100,000 less than I want to spend, because nothing, so on this one, I was looking for about 750 was kind of the price I was looking, just everything included, 750. So I told my mom and them, I was like, hey, we're really looking around the 600 range, 650-ish. Because I know whenever I do that, they're going to start at 900 and they kind of, so between the three of us, we just kind of went, and I would find 3 or 4 properties and send it to my mom and my wife. My mom would do the same to me and my wife. My wife would do it to me and my mom. And we just kind of make a list of all the things we found interesting. And then I'd come down to the office and I'd get on Excel for, ever and run all these numbers to see what worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, by this point, I have some pretty nice templates that I've personally made for myself that I can plug a price in, what I want my down payment and interest rate and all that to be, and just some of the miscellaneous things, and it'll spit me out an ROI, which is really convenient.
Okay.
Saves a lot of time. Not perfect, but it's close. And then, but once again, though, this is my first time doing a short-term rental, so I could be completely, out there with it. But I think I've tried to. I always err on the side of caution.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the year, unless something catastrophic happens, my numbers always come back better because, instead of taking out 8% for damages, I take out 12 to 15, just things like this. So I have more money just kind of sitting back just in case. And then at the end of the year, it's just a nice, pleasant surprise where I'm like, oh, good, nothing catastrophic happened.
Yeah.
So we picked all these places. I called a couple of the property management groups out there to see, because I like mailbox money. So if I don't have to do anything and somebody else can manage the property for me, great. They start at a 35% fee.
Woo!
Right. Yeah. That was kind of shocking to me. I kind of laughed and I was like, this isn't a beach property, right? This is this is mountains. And they're like, yep, this is pretty standard. And, I called every single company out there and it was very standard, 35%. There's a couple of the other smaller ones that you can kind of a la carte what you want and they'll take 10%. But, the biggest thing for me is flipping it between guests and cleaning. And a lot of the smaller ones that don't do, they don't do that. They charge less, but they don't do the hard part. And I'm like, well, I can put it on VRBO and Airbnb. Like, I can do that. I can handle the 4 messages I'm gonna have to get per guest.
Yeah.
So I settled on not using a property manager, and I'm just going to do it myself. And my whole plan with this is, I'm going to do it for a year, and if I hate it, then I'll pass it off to a property manager. And if nothing else, I'll make a little bit or I'll break even. Not my choice, but I so far, having done it for a little bit of time that I have done so far, it's been pretty nice. I'm probably spending 15 minutes a day on it, which is great. That's very acceptable. When I get 3 and 4 of these things, I'll probably call up one of my younger cousins and be like, hey, how would you like to make $100 per property per month? All you have to do is manage all the questions, all the stupid questions that kind of come in about these. So I'll find a way to to offset that for me in the future. But assuming this goes well and I keep buying more and more. So we went out, we started looking at properties. The first couple we saw were really nice, and with a mountain home. What's the most important thing that you're looking at for guests is they want a good view, they want a hot tub, which is really funny because I didn't think it was the hot tub, but all of my friends that do this told me the exact same things. They're like, they want a good view, they want a hot tub, and if you have something unique, that really helps getting people out there. Yeah. So we saw a bunch of them, and the ones that had great views didn't have hot tubs or even an area for a hot tub. The one that had hot tubs didn't really have great views. You could find some really wonderful bougie ones with zero view, just on a piece of property in the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of hard to find the whole package. And then so my mom actually found this one for me and my wife, and it came in. I want to say the starting price was $780. I want to say. So at a budget for me, it was $780 also without furniture or anything included.
Oh, okay. So you'd have to furnish it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at 800, 820, somewhere in there. Because and the place they found was beautiful. So you can't really, do cruddy furniture. You can't just go to the local Goodwill. You have to do some nice high quality stuff. Sure. So I was like, well, 780. I'm like, I don't even know why we're going to see it. I'm like, 780 ain't going to happen. My cutoff is 750 with furniture included. That's, so we go out there to see it, and it is gorgeous. And it has everything. It has the hot tub. It has fire pits. It has games. It has an arcade machine in the basement with like 400 games on it. Bunk beds. It comfortably sleeps 8. Realistically, it probably sleeps about 12. Yeah. And it's unique. And that was the one thing I hadn't really found, was something that's unique. So it's an authentic Canadian log cabin, and there's really only about 5 of them in the whole Blue Ridge area in Georgia. And that's like, it probably is less than 5, but I want to say there's about 5. And it's built with actual logs. I mean, and they're comically large. We're talking about something you would see at like Fort Wilderness and Disney, to where they're like tractor tire size, massive logs. I mean, like, just it is absolutely gorgeous. And I was like, okay, I have to take a stab at this. I mean, like, if we can get to 750 with furnishings, I'm like, it's worth doing, because
Yeah.
this thing is nice. And at the time, I didn't know of any rental history, so negotiating is my favorite thing to do in the world. You like back in the day, like, give me a used car salesman. I'll have so much fun trying to get the best deal. So, I Never Split the Difference is my favorite negotiating book. I think I've plugged that before on your
Yeah, I think you did. I think you did.
on your podcast. So I started us off at a mildly insulting. I think my first bid was 687. Because I'm like, I have to let them know that their number's wrong. We're not doing 780. And then you pick an odd number to end it on, because the odd numbers, for some reason, psychologically tell your person there's a specific reason I've ended on an odd number instead of just saying 700. So we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we kind of finally ended on, my last offer to them was 745 with all the furniture included. And they accepted. So perfect. Yep. $5,000 off, and I got my furniture.
Yep.
So
that's a big deal.
It went really well. It was funny because getting them to come down was a lot. Like I said, like, I started super low. Like I said, my goal was 750, but getting them to come down was a lot. And I told my wife, and I'm like, it's weird. Like, they're really hesitant to come down on their number. And I'm like, so it tells me either A, they really just want the money out of this place, or there's some kind of sentimental, like, attachment. Maybe this is my baby. And I'm like, it's one of the two. They're either really just wanting every penny they can get, or something. I'm like, I feel like I just have this odd feeling. So it turns out it's a big sentimental attachment, which is excellent, because that means they took care of it really well.
Yeah.
So the other thing, which I found out along the way, when they were negotiating, they threw out their rental history to me. So I'm a big 1% rule fan. So, like, if you can make 1% of the total price per month in rent, then then it's a worthy investment. It's not perfect, but the numbers tend to work out.
Yeah.
So they threw out, it was over 90,000 in revenue for the year last year. I was like, done. Like, like that makes that 780 more appealing, but we're not doing that.
Yeah. Wow, man. So, I mean, it sounds like you walked into a great deal, and then they accepted your offer. You purchased the property. So what happened next? What's the next part of the story here?
So I'm on the hook now. I'm going to buy this property, and my first fumble, I went, you know what? One of those books said that I just totally ignored and forgot about. I was like, I think I have to pay taxes to the county. I've never really thought about that. And sure enough, you have to get a lodging certificate, and it has to be, like, stamped and all that good stuff. And I was like, uh-oh, I should probably start on that now, because I intend to start renting the moment we close.
Yeah.
And so I called up my realtor, and she's like, oh yeah, you have to call so-and-so down at the county clerk's office, and they'll give you your lodging certificate. She's like, here's her number, blah, 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 blah. So I call this lady up, and boy, is she angry. You can just see she has that government job that she just did not enjoy.
Oh,
I mean, everything she said. And I was so nice. I turned on the super saccharine sweet. Oh boy, how you doing today? Let me talk to you about this lodging certificate. Oh wow, your job must be really hard. Da, 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 da. And I mean, and nothing. I mean, none of my charm, none of my anything worked. She was like, I'm the only one in this county that can do these, and I manage every single rental in this county. Blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh well, where can I turn my application into? I'm not even sure your application should come to me. And I'm like, well, you do manage every rental in this county,
Yeah.
And she's like, how'd you get my number? And I'm like, my realtor so-and-so gave it to me, I told me to call you. And then, like, she just got, like, even kind of more angry. It was like, it was weird. Like, she was kind of just very, you can see she was just very unhappy in her job, which she never should be. But turns out, after the fact, I called my realtor back up, and I was like, man, that lady was something. And she's like, oh yeah, by the way, I hope you didn't mention my name. She hates me. Apparently they had some big personal tiff back in the day, and it was like,
oh my
god, they'd had words, because apparently I think my realtor back when she first moved to the area, didn't know she needed their certificate. And this lady found her through one of the online sites and was like, haha, I caught you renting and not paying taxes. And then they kind of had the thing when, it's all like I guess you learn as you go. But so she's like, well, I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks and I have 30 other rental applications in front of you. So it's going to be months before, I fill out your paperwork and you can even pay taxes. And I'm like, well, I'm renting it regardless. Like, either you want your taxes or you don't. I didn't say that, but that's what I'm thinking in my head. So I filled out my application and I sent it in, and it was really quick. Her turnaround was like 3 days. It got back to me, and it was all done. And I was like, man, that was a lot of heartache for you to actually do a really great job. Like you did a wonderful job. Thank you so much. Like, wish you could have been a little nicer in the process. But
did you send her like some flowers or something? Like, thank you so much.
I'm gonna need to next year.
Yeah.
So I got the lodging certificate. The next thing we did, so the sellers were actually really great. Since they cared about this place, they called me and they were like, would you like us to continue taking bookings in this, in the month and a half or so it's going to take us to close? And I was like, that's actually really nice. Yes, please. So, because all the information I've kind of found is that the average booking time is about 60 days. So it's about 2.5 months out. And I'm like, if you just stop taking bookings now, I'm going to hit the ground with no bookings going. And then, and I'm sure I'll get some, but as a new host with no reviews and no experience doing that, it's just going to be so much harder.
Yeah.
So they continued taking bookings all the way up until the day of closing, which was excellent. And then it was a matter of how do you switch the bookings over from your Airbnb and VRBO accounts to my account. So they can't just give me their account, and Airbnb and VRBO doesn't have a mechanism to do that. So we kind of talked about it, and they're like, what we'll do is we'll prep the people. We'll call everybody and tell them, hey, it's going to be under new ownership. He's going to honor all your prices and everything. So I made sure they sent me copies of like all their pricing sheets and all the information.
Oh, cool. And
I mirrored all their prices, and then I just kind of blocked off my Airbnb and VRBO so nobody could book it.
Yeah.
And so on the day we go live, but the best part of all of this, right? So it turns out they got about $12,000 in bookings for me, which was awesome.
Nice.
Very exciting over like a month or two. And so I've gone through everything. I mean, I poured 10 hours into making my Airbnb and VRBO sites, like easily 10 hours trying to I copied theirs exactly. I tweaked it a little bit here and there, did their prices. I went through almost every single problem I could probably have, at least that I could predict.
Yeah.
And so I close with my property. I get out, I go get in my car, and I send my emails and my messages to everybody. Hi, everybody. You booked the yada 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 cabin. It's under new ownership. I'd be honored if you would rebook under us. Here's the 2 links for VRBO and Airbnb. And I sent it out, and every single person except for one rebooked immediately. I mean, immediately. It was perfect. And I was like, oh my gosh, because my big thing is I'm like, I want this to work. Are people not going to book? And then I'm going to get stuck with this awkward, well, hey Bobby, are you going to rebook? Hey Bobby, are you going to rebook?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep waiting. My prices are going to probably be a little lower than I want them. It'll be, so everybody pretty much rebooked. I was so excited. I get done. I get out of my car. We go into the one of the local places down here in Woodstock, Georgia, and I have my celebratory margarita with my family. I had my second celebratory margarita with my family, and then my phone just starts lighting up, and it's all my guys just panicked, going, Matt, what's going on? What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. All of our reservations were just canceled. So I log on to my Airbnb account, and since the previous owner hadn't taken their site down because they were making sure that everybody had a chance to rebook, it flagged mine as fraudulent. And Airbnb deleted my entire account and canceled all my bookings.
Wow. So,
yeah.
I mean, how long did that last?
Well, I immediately called Airbnb and was like, oh my God, guys, what just happened? And I got some guy, and they were actually, their customer service was very helpful. They're like, look, it will definitely be turned on in the next 45 days.
Oh God.
I was like, whoa, 40, like, I got people staying here in less than 10. Yeah. I'm like, so we need like, I'm like, can you escalate this? Can you put an exclamation mark on my file and get it up to, so.
Oh my gosh.
it honestly only lasted about 20 hours from when
Okay.
all this started. I messaged all my guys. I'm like, I'm so sorry for this inconvenience. I will have it fixed. Don't worry. Like, your places are still there. Like, we will figure this out.
Hmm.
Just give me a day or two. If you need to rebook somewhere else, rebook, and then message me down the line. I'm like, I'll give you a big discount. You'll get like a 20% discount off anything in the
Hmm.
future. I'm like, I hate this, because my thing is I want good customer service.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
want my guys to be happy. Like I said, it's a business, but it's not just a business.
Hmm.
You know, I want to run a good, a good place for people to stay, and I want them to be able to create great memories with their families. So when there's any problem, I want to fix it.
Yeah.
So pretty much all like, so but like, we'll call you back. Airbnb will call me back, and I was like, okay, I'm waiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, just, anytime now, between now and the next 4 days. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Today, I need this done today. So they call me back at midnight when I'm sleeping. They call me
Yeah.
back at midnight when I'm sleeping. I talk to them. And then they're like, well, we need pictures of the inside of the building to prove that I've actually been inside, which is funny because I'm like, I could have just toured it. But so I sent them pictures, I sent them videos from the inside. I ended up
Hmm.
sending them like my loan documents. Like, I mean, I probably sent them like 50 pieces of information on it. Like, look, I own this place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not just scamming them. And from their end, I mean, I guess it's a good thing, because they're ensuring that people are actually going to have the place they're booking.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I get it. I just wish that this would have happened a little further back. I'm like, because I built this site at the moment I had my documents signed. Like, so
Yeah.
it's been around for 3 weeks.
And
They
then
could have
all of a
flagged
sudden,
it at
like
any
that
given point.
day.
But so they ended up turning it back on, and then it was just kind of a matter of me calling the customers and getting them to rebook again for the third time of their vacation.
Hmm.
And everything actually went really smoothly, and everybody rebooked, and it went really well. And actually, I think it actually worked out better, because I had a number of them say, Matt, we really appreciate you working with us. This could have been very easy for you just to go, whatever, we'll figure it out, and then you
Yeah.
know and make more money from other people down the line. They're like, so we really appreciate you helping out. So I think it actually worked out in my favor.
No, I mean, and that sounds like it when you take on something like that, and I mean, it sounds to me like this is now your new baby, and you're taking care of your new baby just like the previous owners did, and people see that authenticity and desire to truly help somebody comes through. So I think that's a really cool lesson for folks listening. But yeah, I mean, this is fun, man. I'm excited for you. I think this is going to be an interesting adventure for you and your wife.
It's been neat so far. And so my first guest actually checked out today, and they had a great time. They loved it. I like, with our changing economy, I try to do everything I can to kind of hedge my bets and keep from failing. So we did a little bit of social media push. I have an Instagram. It's the Cozy Bear Lodge. Shameless plug.
Mm-hmm.
On Instagram. I made a Facebook account. I'm going on this popular podcast. All the things I can
Yes.
do. All the things I can do to
Got to push it out there,
advertise.
man.
But it's been a pretty good experience so far. It was kind of funny because I had to set up all my utilities, and I got to, once again, I'm a big fan of Never Split the Difference. So I got to use some of my Never Split the Difference stuff. So like, one of the companies was like, I was trying to get internet set up, because if nothing else, I have to have my Wi-Fi set up.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't get out there to set up Wi-Fi for 2 weeks. And I mean, I was going up on one specific day. I brought my family up because I'm like, we've never ran an Airbnb before.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to be asking me questions: how to work the hot tub, how to work the fireplaces, how to work this. I go,
You got
let's
it.
go stay in it for a day or two, and live in it and figure out all the ins and outs. Let's go through all the checklists and make sure everything works. And
Mm-hmm.
what do we need to replace and what do we need to buy? So the internet company is like, well, I can't get out there for 2 weeks after. So I did my Never Split the Difference thing, where I just go, but how am I supposed to do that?
Yeah.
And then, and it's funny because I always find, how can I do that? How can this happen? How can this work?
Mm-hmm.
It gets the person you're kind of negotiating with in your court. And it was funny because my mom was actually standing at the door when I was talking to him, and I watched her give me this face like, what are you doing? When I was talking to this guy, because I could see her, because I just kept repeating it. He's like, well, I think I went up there on the 30th, and he's like, well, as soon as we can do is the 7th. And I'm like, how can that happen? I'm only there on the 30th. Well, sir, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, how can we make this happen? Blah blah blah. And he's well, and he
Mhm.
just kept going and kept going. And so I just kept howing, and eventually he's like, let me just talk to my manager. And he goes away, comes back
Mhm.
for a minute. And he's like, hey, 8 o'clock on the 30th, we'll be there. And I was, I was
There you
super
go.
excited. It worked out.
Yeah.
One of the big things for getting this the Airbnb going is the previous owners were really great. They gave me a list of all their contacts, and they gave me a
Mhm.
list of all their handymen and their cleaning crew in the area, because the cleaning crew is by
Nice.
far the most important thing.
Sure.
So
Sure.
so I have all that set up, and it's really actually nice because with bookings happening all the time, I don't want to be texting and messaging the cleaners at all times. So
Mhm.
they actually we shared calendars, so he can see all my bookings when they're coming and going and when they need to be cleaned,
Okay. That's
which is really
cool.
nice. And
Yeah.
they do a great job. I've been out there, I've actually seen his people work, and they do a really good job. They probably spend 3 hours in this place, because it's not a small place. I mean,
Wow.
even to like they completely drain the hot tub and refill it between every guest. All these really nice, nice
Mhm.
little things. So it's been going really good. One or two of the things that I didn't actually expect, which kind of hit my bottom line, but I always put in all this wiggle room, is it being in the woods. There's mountain critters everywhere. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna allot for $30 a month of pest control. Thinking that I'm like, I'm not
Mhm.
even going to be using this. And the people before me were like, all right, so you have rodents, you have wasps and bees, and you have termites, because this is a log cabin. They're like, da, 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 da. And that was one of the big things that kind of caught me off guard. Was I was like, oh, so it's really going to be more about 120 or so a month of pest control, which
Mhm.
was fine, which throws my numbers off a little bit, but it actually came out really really good, because I'm like, thank God they actually gave me the heads up on all this, because you don't think that things like hornets are a big issue in the mountains.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't, I mean, at least I didn't, at
Oh.
least would realize that
Yeah.
there's such a, so that was a nice pleasant surprise. I'm also really good at trying to learn from my mistakes. One of the interesting things with the algorithm on VRBO and Airbnb is what's your max guest, which mine, I have it set at 8 right now.
Mhm.
And then it says, do you want to, what are you going to charge per extra guest? So the standard in the area is about $100 per extra guest.
Mhm.
So I clicked on $100 and hit go. And then when my first two people booked, I looked at them like, wow, they booked it, and it charged them so much more, because they had 7 guests, 8 guests. And apparently there was a qualifier on there that I didn't see, and it was max guest over what number, and I didn't see the number, and it was set to 1. So it actually charged everybody an extra $100
Oh,
for the
geez.
first couple of guests. And it was like, no, luckily I caught it before they did. And the first
Yeah.
thing I did is I reached out and I was like, hey guys, this is what happened.
Mhm.
The bank has made a mistake in your favor.
Yeah.
Let me make this right. But once again, though, I think because I want to provide a good experience, and I reached out and I'm proactive with it. I think it's really going to help get return customers and all that, because they
Yeah.
were all very happy. They're like, oh, we didn't even notice. Thank you so much. You could have just let that go. Like, no, yeah, I'm honest. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not, I mean, that's not nothing. I mean, $100 a person's that
yeah,
that's a big
for,
deal.
yeah.
Most people would notice that eventually.
I
Uh,
think I think one of them got like those 700 extra, and then one of them was like 400 extra, which was like,
mhm.
oof, you know.
Yeah,
And but once again, now I'm like, no, we're gonna do this right. We're gonna be fair about this.
for
So,
sure. For sure. Well, man, this
but
sounds, I mean, just an amazing experience. And, like you can plan for everything, or so you think, and then things are still going to go kind of haywire in certain ways, but it doesn't mean that you can't recover from it and still have a very, very good experience for yourself and for your customers. So yeah, man, this is cool. I like this stuff.
it's fun, and I figured that this is a good little kind of intro into people wanting to start their own Airbnb or VRBO. So hopefully this is helpful to some of your listeners. And if they have any questions, they can always reach out to, I guess, me or you, and I'm happy to tell you all my resources and stuff I kind of looked into. And I also kind of figured, if you want and you want to invite me back, 6 months to a year down the road, I would love to tell you about all all the successes and failures I have, I'm sure there'll be plenty of both. And, maybe it'll be wildly successful and I'll be hopefully picking up a beach house or something else down the line when we talk.
Yeah.
Or if not, I'll tell you about how I crashed and burned and let you see the slow wreckage. Either way, it's a good learning experience.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, I'm not booked 6 or 12 months out. So you're welcome to come back on anytime, brother. We'll have you on and we'll hear all about these stories that you have, because it's always a pleasure to have you here. So, but I did want to give you a chance to give out some of your contact info so people can get a hold of you. You mentioned the Instagram account for, is it at the Cozy Bear Lodge?
It is at the Cozy Bear Lodge.
Okay. And then the Facebook account.
The Facebook account is just the Cozy Bear Lodge as well. Keeping it nice and simple. You'll have my Airbnb and VRBO links in the notes for the podcast. So
yeah,
if anybody, if nothing else, honestly, I would love it if people that are listening to this would click on the links and maybe send me an email, even if you don't want to book, and be highly critical of it and tell me what I could do better. I'm all about learning. So, people, I'm sure some of your listeners are, Airbnb and VRBO guys that love to go stay in these places or even host themselves. I'm happy for tips and tricks. So,
cool, man.
The other thing is, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can always get a hold of me at matthew.newton711@gmail.com. And that's really it. I'm very excited to be here.
No, man, this has been great. I really appreciate your time today, sharing this experience with all of us. It's pretty incredible, and I look forward to hearing more stories later on down the line.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
I always have a great time talking with Matthew, and he always seems to bring something new to my attention. His family is his why, and he is just relentless in his pursuit of a better life for them. And that hunger has led him to explore several different alternative investments, including his most recent log cabin purchase. Now, Matthew truly embraces the idea of creating multiple streams of income. And something tells me that a lot more of us out there could take a page out of that playbook. I look forward to catching up with him again just to see how this new venture plays out over time. That's going to do it for today's show. If you'd like to reach out to Matthew to find out more information about him or his log cabin, make sure you check out the links in our show notes. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Till next time, be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On-Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On-Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.